Let's just vibe.
The Eddie Leeway Show is sponsored by Sound Wars Studio in Hoboken, New Jersey, and My Reality Entertainment, the newest and brightest record company in the hardcore scene. Yeah, we're back, folks. Like, you can't tell this is me doing voiceovers and everything else here, trying to be a sarcastic fuck. But, it's the Eddie Leeway Show with Doc Ock, and we're just swinging it. We're swinging it and winging it, mailing it in to your ear.
Long, limp, and occasionally sticking out your pocket.
Yeah, just a little bit. A little bit of a bump. But, we were talking about pretty much life in New York and Times Square, and about some of the crazy shit that G.G. Allen did. But I'm kind of curious to know, like, what early bands touched you as a kid.
Oh, that's like a good topic, because when I came here, it was probably when I came back here, it was probably like 77, 78. Mm. And New York was like coming to the promised land, because that was the dawn of first wave of punk. It was the end of the kind of, I guess you'd say, hard rock era.
Yeah.
Definitely the beginning of hip hop, or what we called rap at that time. I felt like everything was happening, musically at least, between 76 and 82.
I was like diamonds in the rough, because 2 years earlier is the famous headline where President Ford tells Mayor Beam drop dead when New York City was on the brink of bankruptcy. You know, very similar to what people experienced in Detroit not too long ago. So imagine how hard it was to survive in New York at the time. Shit was very, very bleak. But somehow, some way, these bands started coming from the ashes and climbing out of the subways, literal underground, and it helped create some of today's music and inspire, you know, decades and decades of artists.
You know, interestingly enough, like, I don't think New York at the time, hold on, I have to move my mic. I don't think New York at the time was really respected as an epicenter of New York, of music, as much as places like L.A.
No, but everybody robbed the shit out of New York.
Oh, yeah, but then you think about, and I was a child then, bands like Blue Oyster Cult, Kiss, Blondie. I mean, New York was holding it down back then. Punk scene comes out, and all of a sudden, I guess you'd say the artsier leanings of punk were happening in the beginning, before England showed up.
Well, you had the Graft Riders.
Let's not get it fucked up.
Yeah.
And New York was doing stuff that could be roughly called punk before anybody came out and called it punk.
Well, the reality of that was Malcolm McLaren came to New York
here
in 73, 74, tried to manage the New York Dolls.
After hearing television and the Dolls and shit
having
like that.
a little bit of a homoerotic thing for Richard Hell, he went back to England and created punk rock that the world knew.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing we also forget is that first wave of punk really only lasted like 2-3 years.
Yep.
And then it was gone. And then second wave came in. And then it turned into like new wave and no wave. And frankly, I loved it.
Do you know who coined that phrase, new
Which
wave?
one? Who?
Seymour Stein.
Get out of here.
He wanted to get away from the punk rock ethic, and as he was trying to promote like the Ramones and the Dead Boys, he wanted to come up with a new name for it. So he started, I believe, the whole term new wave, so he could sell the bands and they were more palatable to the mainstream.
Well, I can distinctly remember, like, okay, after the first wave, and to be frank with you, I wasn't here in the first year of the first wave. I was on the West Coast. Mm. But we heard about on the West Coast, we heard about the Ramones. We heard about television on the West Coast.
The Germs was starting out then.
Yeah, we had the Germs, and later on we had Fear, and we had all the L.A. punk bands.
And ironically, all the L.A. punk bands that were following what they thought was McLaren's creation of what punk rock was.
Yeah.
But all McLaren was doing was basically redesigning and repackaging what New York was for
McLaren
3-4 years.
I feel like the McLaren was the P.T. Barnum of punk.
Yeah,
in my
that's
opinion.
a good way of putting it.
And because what he was trying, after reading Johnny Rotten's, both of Johnny Rotten's biographies, because he has 2 of them out, he has some very negative things to say about Malcolm McLaren. And basically what I got from him was that he was trying to do something far more authentic and organic. And McLaren was trying to sort of make a plastic version of punk that he could market.
Yeah, I don't know if Rotten was so tight with Don Letts as he came into the Sex Pistols, but he was down with like that reggae dub contingent, and I'm trying to remember what else I read from one of his books. I think it was No Blacks, No Irish.
Yes, I read both of them.
And it gave you an idea of how much of a huckster McLaren was.
Yeah.
But if you also read Please Kill Me,
which I also read, yes.
By Legs McNeil and Jillian. Yes. I can't remember her last name of this.
Legs McNeil.
And Jillian.
I can't remember the last name.
Maybe Murphy. I'm not sure. I feel bad. I can't. Please Kill Me. Please Kill Me was the name of the book. But
Please Kill
the
Me
portrayal that they have of Malcolm in there is like of this real fuddy-duddy, like, buck-toothed Englishman. You know what I mean? And he turned out to be quite a salesperson in far as what he marketed and in punk rock and what he gave the world.
Eddie, I want to throw out an idea to you that you might find slightly offensive.
All right.
Legs McNeil and Gillian McCain. Or Jillian
that's
McCain.
Why
I personally think that Malcolm was, for all his bad leanings, as essential to the punk movement as the more organic people, because he really brought punk rock into the public stage.
Yeah, and he was also a big pusher of rap too. You know what I mean? Like he helped to bring that into the dance world a bit.
You know what? No.
The Buffalo girls go around the outside,
on the
outside. The Buffalo girls go around the outside.
If we're keeping it real, I have to call some bullshit on that one.
All right, call it.
But
Doc call bullshit. So
yeah. Well,
please explain.
McLaren, yes. Buffalo. Yeah, I'm gonna explain. Buffalo Gals for its hip hop influence was not well received here by the hip hop community, and for some strange reason, a lot of people think, oh well, hip hop community accepted Buffalo Gals. Buffalo Gals, if you were here in the late 70s and Buffalo Gals came on, it was just like, there was better shit on. And keep in mind, in 79, 80, 81, there weren't enough things out for the average DJ to play.
Yeah, he didn't really have much of a selection to work with. No, and I agree with that. I'm going by, like, I remember hearing it so often in the clubs when it came out.
I remember it, and
As a 16-year-old, breaking night in New York City, and all of that, I just remember as it came out and, also being part of this new phenomena, which was American hardcore. And
let's talk about that for a second.
Well, a lot of people don't seem to realize that hardcore is American. Even though it's become a worldwide thing, as we talked about how Malcolm McLaren is the so-called father of punk when he's not.
By the way, Buffalo Girls came out in '82. So
McLaren, since he in essence did not create punk rock, then American punk and hardcore is basically a more purist American thing that eventually reached every corner of the globe. That's why you have hardcore bands worldwide now.
Oh, this is where I get my education, because while I was kind of sort of there, I was too young to get into clubs to see first wave punk. I was clearly aware of bands like Leeway and Cro-Mags, and those bands were always in my periphery. But who would you say? Let's say I'm going to take one band out of that picture. I'm going to take the Bad Brains out for a second.
Okay.
Excluding the Bad Brains, who do you think were the first wave of hardcore bands?
Well, definitely it was coming from my exposure to it in Astoria, Queens. You had right there Kraut, which was one of the first bands to not only bring out a single, but also a full-length LP. And I was introduced to the scene from basically through the eyes of Kraut and guys that I grew up with from the neighborhood. But you also had bands like The Mob, which were like, I think, in the Jackson Heights Woodside area. And then you had Urban Waste, which had some guys from the Ridgewood Projects in Astoria and in other parts and pockets of Queens and I believe Manhattan. So those are the bands that I remember as really being the very first and the bands that I paid attention to because they were local acts,
Okay, well, I kind of remember at one point hearing some interview with Exene Cervenka and John Doe, where they were talking about towards the middle to end period of one of X's cycles, where they were talking about how they were playing a song called Johnny Hit and Run Pauline.
Yeah, I remember the song.
And they used to play that song, and all of a sudden, instead of the song was about abuse and rape.
Yeah.
And the misunderstanding of the public, the young men mostly, was that it was an anti-rape, anti-abuse song. And yet they had young men out there in the audience like pumping their fists going, Johnny Hit and Run Pauline, Johnny Hit and Run.
Not getting it.
And not getting it all. And they felt, and I think I understand from that interview that was sort of the beginning era of hardcore.
Yeah, 79.
Yeah. And I know I can only say from my personal experience when I first started becoming aware of hardcore punk, I didn't understand what it was. I liked some of the music. I didn't like some of the music. But I got this kind of thug culture vibe.
It was a little bit of both. Now, if I kind of describe the difference between Kraut, The Mob, and Urban Waste, Kraut was the more of a punk band than hardcore.
Yeah.
Whereas Urban Waste and The Mob were more a hardcore band. And I guess a lot of it was not just sound and talent that was coming across musically, but also it was the dress and the attitude of the members in the band. And you take a band like X that had more artful components to them, and the musicianship that was based within the band was much more vast than the limitations of, say, early Black Flag or early Descendants, who were coming out anywhere between 79, 80, 81 with their releases. Because, of course, Black Flag was around in 79, but I don't think the Descendants came until about 81. So I think it's a matter of taste, and it's based on the group and what they put into. But there was that very fine line in those first couple of years of what was punk and what was hardcore. And that's why I think a lot of people use hardcore punk as an expression versus straight hardcore or straight punk bands. And it's hard to find a definition. I always hated the labeling of people trying to compare what my music was about. So I could only imagine what it's like for anybody else in a larger, more popular position.
Well, speaking as I guess you might say an outsider or somebody who is populating the everything but hardcore world. While I didn't have a prejudice against it, there was a period of time where I did kind of see it as it's kind of dude rock. It's kind of like it was a dude thing. Nothing wrong with that. And then I heard groups like Quicksand, and I went, what the fuck?
Yeah, that whole 80s thing, I think a lot of the 70s punks from New York that helped really create what became punk and McLaren's punk, I think they felt the same way. They saw this jock mentality come in and occupy the music as well, and that's where you got that physical, knuckle-dragging Neanderthal side that became what it was.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I love some knuckle-dragging shit. Hey, I was the biggest fan of Peter Steele. I loved that
There you
shit.
go. There you go.
I was a fan of Venom, and I was Celtic Frost for all of you Europeans.
You guys are wild, really wild.
Yeah, and
It's my best Kronos I could do.
Yeah, I used to hold knuckle dragging as a virtue, and until it got really ugly.
Yeah, but a lot of those 70s cats, they felt like, this jock mentality came in and took over their world. And, a lot of them were very offended by it. Others saw it as a new direction and where, that downtown scene was going towards. And people adapted or they didn't. You know what I mean?
You know what? I never had a problem with the culture of it or the music of it per se. I definitely loved some of what I was hearing. Definitely. And I actually
It's a lot of bands. You can't like them all.
You can't hate them all.
Yeah.
But I felt like there was a kind of monochromatic thing going on where too many bands sounded the same.
Yes. I see that in today's music.
Yeah.
I can almost look at a guitar player or a bass player or a frontman, and you can see who they're trying to emulate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's only going to be like one or two great straight edge hardcore stars from New York. You know what I mean? So anybody trying to do the same fucking moves on stage as that dude does, like
can't all be forgotten.
Jump in the air with the fist and everything like that, you look like you're this guy or that guy. I'm not gonna say names, so I'm not gonna get into that fucking static with you. But I can see like, oh, this guy's jocking this dude. This guy's jocking that guy. And I always thought the whole reason to get involved with this music was to show your individuality.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And really show people who you are. There's nothing wrong with being influenced by somebody. But I have a problem when you're literally aping the guy's whole fucking show.
Well, that happens. That happens with every subgenre of me. And that's the problem with subgenres in general.
Yeah. I mean, I got a little HR in me, but I'm not trying to do an HR impersonation on stage.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Come on, please. A funny thing about that, while I knew about the Bad Brains for a long time, it wasn't until sometime around the time that they were doing shows with Slayer that I actually got a chance to hear their music.
I didn't know that they did that.
Yeah, didn't they do it? Yeah, they did some Ritz shows with a show at the Ritz with Slayer, and I didn't actually get it. It was a reunion show. It must have been just before I&I. Slayer, Megadeth, and Bad Brains.
I know. Well, I remember a Megadeth Bad Brains experience that's in somebody's book, but you keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, a lot of first wave fans don't consider I&I, what was it, I Against I?
Yeah.
To be their crowning achievement.
Yeah.
But for me, that was actually the first time I can remember hearing them.
I see. And, I think that was their first real, music video. for hired gun.
Yeah, oh God.
You know, and you know, now I'm getting flashbacks. Hold on a second. The good old 80s. Okay, I'm back. Ooh, I got a hot flash and shit. God damn those 80s.
Well,
You can't say so much about the Bad Brains because I feel like they influenced everything over the last 4 decades.
you want to hear
in my
something
own
weird?
opinion. Good.
I didn't see them as a hardcore band when I first heard them. I thought they were bigger than hardcore.
Yeah. You can't call them punk, and it's really hard to label them as anything. And I'm real curious to see how far they go since they're on the ballot for the Hall of Fame this year, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm curious to see what's going to happen.
I can tell you
with
where
that.
that's going right now.
It's not going to happen because
You
they're
know
going to
it.
give it to some,
The Hall of
20
Shame.
million selling artist that nobody gives a fuck about
But
today.
who gives a fuck about the Hall of Fame anyway?
I know. But,
That's some raw bullshit right
well,
there.
who
Fuck them.
owns the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Is that Rolling Stone magazine? Is
Seriously.
that Jan Wenner?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, fuck you in the ass with a broken bottle sideways. Eat a dick.
Oh, shit. That ass is flooding with blood.
Fuck those guys.
Ooh.
They're meaningless. They have no validity, and nobody respects them. Fuck them.
That's a fucking all right.
Fuck
Ooh,
them.
Ooh. Ooh.
You've been disrespecting too many bands for too long. Fuck you guys, man. And you're voting bands in who are not bands, who are not rock and roll. What the fuck are you doing?
I like
Seriously.
the fact that like Steve Miller called them out for their bullshit
I love
a little
that.
back.
Oh, that shit got me moist. I was
You
like,
know,
what the fuck?
what it is, for example, is they'll put you in the Hall of Fame and it'll be a big night and you'll get your honor and you'll get your speech, but like you're not allowed to even have a guest list. All you're allowed to do is like bring your wife, and if you want to bring your kids, it's
No.
$10,000 a seat. You're going into their Hall of Fame, but you can't get enough seats for your family to be honored unless you want to, cough up 5 fucking digits for a fucking ass spot.
Clearly that was some business shit that was some bullshit business where they were literally trying to get pocketed because they weren't making the cash because people know they're bullshit now.
I mean, it's nice to see Cheap Trick and Steve Miller Band, get the honors that year and everything else. But when I heard that stuff, it's just another let's get paid angle, and it's really not even about the essence of music and everything else. I mean, I don't care that you got Elvis's jumpsuit, Dick Manitoba's fucking, ring robe, stage ring robe or whatever you have.
You can't see this, but I'm bowing at the mention of Dick Manitoba.
Basically, it's all just to have in a room and basically charge a ticket for everybody to go look at these things and look at all these make-believe honorees of the Hall of Fame.
Armet Edigan, Atlantic Records, is the founder of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And from what I understand, it's like Rolling Stone and Jan Wenner are big power players within it. So my question is it a business? Is it just a straight up fucking bullshit slide business?
Didn't they induct like Madonna?
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
So
I'm drunk.
basically, it's all the big dudes in the music industry from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that are still alive, trying to fucking hustle another angle.
Well,
to all the bands that are gone, but basically, a little bit of memorabilia and a little bit of music and some fake ass ceremonies.
Yeah.
You got another fucking viable, corporation and entity to make money off of.
Well, it's a shame, especially now when, quite frankly, they're inducting rap groups. And don't get me wrong. Do not get me twisted. I love old school hip hop and rap.
Yeah, I'm going to call it rap.
Up until about 92. But
I felt the same way. I mean, here I am, punk rock kid, hardcore kid. I got my own band. I signed the same record contract as Run DMC did. The digits, of course, were a little bit different on there, but it was such a fucking slave ship fucking manifest of a contract. You know what I mean? The way they just held us down and everything like that.
And which company was that?
And this was Profile Records. And, you know, I enjoyed that 80s period of rap from like 1979 till about 92. Then my tastes were changing as well.
Yay.
So, I mean, that's where you go. All right, we might be dating ourselves a bit here, but I think we have a better understanding than most of the newer jacks that are out there, you know. And we're just trying to school you. We're just trying to entertain you.
Well, I get the young kids who, and I don't want to make this a rap thing, but I get the young kids who are like, you old motherfucker. You know, Soulja Boy is the shit. Even that's old. But I get every generation not wanting to hear the previous generation shit anymore.
Yeah, okay. But
Having said that, though, in rock music, the younger kids are listening to older music now
yes, yes.
because they do not get on a very cellular level how this current music has color, how this current music has emotion. I think a lot of these younger kids are understanding that this current, I don't even know what to call it anymore, in rock is very plastic.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think in hip hop, it's gotten, we shouldn't even be using the term hip hop anymore. It's fucked up, man. The game, y'all got the game fucked up.
It doesn't matter what genre or sound you're in, music just is not as appealing or capturing as it was 25 years, 35 years, 40, 50 years ago. The art, an artist has seemed to have gotten lost, and it's more prefabbed, and I don't know if it's outright biting and stealing, but I think a lot of people should have been able to see the history of their music and their definitive sound that they're in, and should have enough knowledge by all of that to be able to introduce something much more incredible, because you have all of this to fall back and, you know, gain reference from. You should be able to create something even bigger and better.
Yeah.
And instead it's regressing.
Well, I think it's regressing, but I also think we're coming very quickly towards the point where people are going to get tired of these 2-chord songs.
True.
And I think I personally feel like we're going to get to the point where you actually need to have a musical education to make music, and which is...
Or you have to have something unique that you're bringing to the table. You're pushing the envelope. You're not just playing it safe. You're not making songs because you think people will like them. You know, I never believed in that shit. You know, you're making music for yourself first and foremost. And if you could play it and draw an audience, hey, that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, think about what happened in the 60s. In the 60s, there was this long period where there was all these groups that were doing basically 12-bar blues jams. Mm-hmm. I mean, it couldn't get simpler than that. And they wrung all the liquid out of that dish rag. And eventually, groups came along and said, we need to start being progressive, you know, which was corny, but, you know, I don't listen to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but you know, it was like, okay, we need to at least advance from that.
So you're talking about like that British invasion that tried to use blues and they incorporated their own thing. Yeah.
Let's progress the blues, yeah.
John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, that period.
It started with that. It started with things like the Beano album with Eric Clapton and John Mayall, and then too much of that, and people got tired of hearing 12-bar blues, and then all of a sudden came this 70s influx of progressive stuff,
8-minute songs,
and it was just reactionary. And what I'm trying to say is I think all progress in music is reactionary. So whatever's going on right now, somebody's going to react against it, and sometimes the reaction is de-evolution. Sometimes the reaction is to become hyper-progressive and hyper-complex, depending on what came before. So if the music right now is super simplistic, I think the next wave will be more progressive and complex. And once that progressive complex stage becomes overdone, then people will do what the punks did, and let's go simplify it. I think what we're having now is overcomplication of production values and very underwhelming song structure.
Yeah, I see it all from a performance level more than a musician's level, I think. And what was the thing I think music is oversaturated by a lot of pretenders, and the type I'll use, I have an expression for it, I call them holly hobbies, because they used music as a hobby, which is cool, but then they try to delve into what would be a relative professional field, and they sell themselves and cheapen themselves like a street prostitute instead of being a more elegant prostitute, you know? They've kind of whored themselves. And in essence, the real bands that should be getting proper attention and compensation have to get treated like a street whore because all these holly hobbies have already cheapened the game, if you will. I feel like shit is falling apart over the last 20 years.
Well, what's a real band to you?
Bad Brains.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To me, it doesn't have to have a particular thing, but, you know, they're renowned musicians who have experience and have done recording for over a decade and have played in more than one band, and that are really lifers to music. To me, that's a real band versus somebody who, you know, just holds down their thing and then rehearses once or twice a week and plays bullshit shows. You know, I probably just set up a lynch mob gathering for myself, but
I really don't believe what you're saying. Are you trying to tell me that Carly Rae Jepsen is not a legitimate artist?
I don't know her too much, but I don't think
Bieber.
so. You know, I think they're more.
With you now, by the way.
That to me is more production than anything else. You know, to me that's entertainment. I don't even really see that as fucking music, to be honest with you.
No, it's not.
You know,
let's go on the record and say no, it's not.
It's not.
Unless she's posing very scantily clad, and then that's a whole different kind of.
But I do have an issue where there's too many bands out there trying to do the same thing, and it kind of kills the energy and the desire to look forward to a show the way it was when we were younger. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's about getting old, but I kind of feel like, you know, people aren't as excited to go out and see bands like they used to.
But Eddie, there's fewer places to go see bands.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I remember the day was I after work I just go 2 blocks over and go to a club and see some band after. And now it's you have to trek.
Yeah, you're right. Damn you, Giuliani. Damn you, Bloomberg. Damn you all to hell. You ruined our quality of life. Well,
I'm not saying to
all because you wanted to get rid of a
but...
couple of squeegee guys and panhandlers. You fucked up our club scene.
Okay, I am directly agreeing with that specific statement, but I bemoan the loss of
a lot of people
clubs
don't know
like
that.
Wetlands. That broke my heart. That was a heartbreaker because I used to go there like every other week.
That was one of the only rooms I could actually hear myself in without a problem. It didn't matter what the mix was. I could hear myself.
Love that. Oh, my God. So 2 of the best shows I've ever seen were in Wetlands. And just so many. There were, I saw the Screaming Headless Torsos there.
I saw the Ohio Players.
Oh, shit. And I missed that.
And the horn,
goddamn.
And the horn section was on a keyboard.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
It was all of them, but they had no horn section. But they would do, all the horns were on keys, so they were just like...
And was Sugarfoot there that night?
Yeah.
Oh, my motherfucker. Ow. Skin tight.
Skin tight.
That was my shit back in the day.
Skin tight.
Na, 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 na.
Aging ourselves
really,
for your
like
pleasure.
This shit is still flavor now. Don't fucking kid yourself.
Yo, you can't beat that shit from back in the day. You can't.
That's all I'm saying. Sample it.
We're gonna go to a break here. You're listening to the Eddie Leeway Show. I'm Eddie Sutton, and my co-host is Doc Ock.
Ah, yes.